You know, even if Kamala Harris were intelligent and gifted, a gifted speaker or something like that, there's no way she could defend what has happened at the border. Joe Biden can't, she can't. If they were asked objective, real questions, it's indefensible. How about our loss in Afghanistan? No, they can't. This is part of the reason why they're hiding. These answers are beyond them, and they're not good at politics. They're not good at it. They have to be the monstrosity, the depravity at the White House. That is indefensible. And so is the crime wave that they have encouraged. The legalization, essentially, of shoplifting and this bogus conversation America's had about race. With all that stuff going on, it's totally indefensible. They're getting ready for their big interview tomorrow on CNN. Guess who might just be on the fence and thinking about endorsing Kamala Harris? George W. Bush. Remember that guy? Yeah. Word is, he's contemplating an endorsement of Kamala Harris. There was a rumor during the DNC that there was some momentum that he was going to do it during the DNC. And now there's speculation that he might do it before the election at some point. What a disgrace. How dare he? After what he brought this country through and what we're going through right now, things that he doesn't have to deal with because he's rich and he's ensconced in a cocoon of comfort. The rest of us have to deal with this stuff. There are big signs that the Republican Party, I mean, the establishment, the Rhino, the country club set, are doing all they can to help Kamala. More than 200 Bush, McCain, Romney alums endorse Harris for president and criticize Trump, going out of their way to do this. And let's look at their endorsement of Harris. I mean, this is unnecessary. We jointly declare that we're voting for Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz this November. Abroad, Democratic movements will be irreparably jeopardized as Trump and his acolyte J.D. Vance kowtow to dictators like Vladimir Putin while turning their backs on our allies. We can't let that happen. You know, like they're not going to let it happen, right? They're not going to let it happen. 200 people from the swamp signed this letter. And remind you something, right? When people come together and sign letters when they're in the swamp, a couple of names are, well, not that noteworthy, but the titles are interesting. Let's put them up one by one, if you don't mind. 200 rhinos, and leading with the following. Christopher Barton, Director, National Security Council, Chief Counsel for the House Permanent Select Committee, Committee on Intelligence, George W. Bush Administration. What a swamp dweller, huh? I mean, this is textbook swamp. Jeffrey Bobeck, Director of External Affairs at the Department of Energy for George W. Bush. Thanks, Jeffrey. I'm surprised at this one. Daniel Connor, Presidential Helicopter for Marine One. Hey, fly the helicopter, and that's it. We don't want to hear this stuff. And Ann Dixon, intern. They had interns sign these letters. It does remind you, though, of the Hunter Biden. This is bogus, right? I mean, they don't know what they're talking about. These are swamp people in it for themselves. Yeah, remember the Hunter Biden laptop? Remember the 51 intelligence officials? Russia disinformation.
More than 50 former intelligence officials signed on to a letter yesterday saying that the New York Post story about Hunter Biden's emails has, quote, all of the classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign.
51 former intelligence officials.
This is a classic move of the swamp, getting together and signing a letter.
Come forward. In fact, it parallels something that I heard in an interview with a former national counterterror expert say it has all the hallmarks of a classic Russian disinformation campaign.
Always self-serving and double dealing. And, you know, the secretaries of defense tried this stuff. They always are doing it. Secretaries of defense, 10 living former secretaries of defense, said the election of 2020 was over in December. Under the Electoral Count Act, the debate continued, but the military-industrial complex said enough. All right, so this brings me back to W. That guy. You know, he's got all the prestige, all the fame, any door in the world is really open to this guy. An ex-president of the United States? Think about what you could do with that clout. What does he do? Paints paintings in his basement. Paints high school quality paintings in his basement. Imagine that his endorsement actually is coveted, though, right? It would shock the world in a way. It shouldn't. And actually, his endorsement should be rejected by anyone after that little thing known as Iraq.
The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, anyway. 75.
Not cute. And neither was his elitism. The cowboy, the ranch, all that stuff, it was just an act. He made $400,000 a year as president of the United States. He was the first president to make that number. They actually doubled the salary for him. And when he was leaving office, what did he do? He complained about how little he was paid. His first order of business upon leaving the White House, I'm going to give some speeches just to replenish the old coffers, because he didn't have enough money. These privileged people. How about the family? You ever see, what's her name, Jenna on the Today Show? I mean, they just go with the wind. Now, they're liberal and woke crazy over there in the mainstream media. Who remembers a football player, Butker, who had a few things to say about family life and tradition, and just maybe the most fulfilling thing in life might be having children, motherhood. You can say that, but you can't say it without apparently tripping out Jenna Bush.
The work they do is incredible.
Yes.
And let's not compare one to the other.
And
by a man.
Thank you. And there are lots of women who actually would like to stay at home. But because they need to earn money,
100%.
they don't even have that privilege.
It's an elitist concept to begin with.
Right.
The daughter of a president complaining about elitist constructs to begin with. I know she's kind of not the issue, and she's not, but it all comes together because this man has not been held accountable for these lies.
Iraq's weapons of mass destruction are controlled by a murderous tyrant who has already used chemical weapons to kill thousands of people. Saddam Hussein is a homicidal dictator who is addicted to weapons of mass destruction.
You know, the Iran-Iraq war, this is a long time ago. He talked about an active weapons WMD program, and there wasn't one. Yet, 100,000 guys invaded Iraq, and lots of them died, and no weapons of mass destruction. And a lot of Iraqis died, too. Innocent people, yeah. And when it came out that there were no WMDs, what did W do, right? He thinks he's funny. So he cracked jokes about it with insiders at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there. Maybe under here.
Not funny at all. There was no accountability for this guy. Re-elected because he conned a lot of people, right? Got to vote for me. Undermining the troops if you don't. Well, there was no real accountability ever until a man named Trump showed up.
Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake, all right? Now, you can take it any way you want, and it took Jeb Bush, if you remember at the beginning of his announcement, when he announced for president, took him 5 days. He went back. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Took him 5 days before his people told him what to say. And he ultimately said it was a mistake. The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
Was that sweet or what? And the Bushes, that's the reason why they hate him. That's the reason why W just might endorse Kamala Harris before Election Day. And, you know, they said Donald Trump was cozy with Putin, too cozy with Putin. That's not true. But this is. And this is disturbing. And it's not just Bush. This is the swamp. This is what really is happening.
President Bush took his Russian guest on a morning fishing trip where Putin was the only one to catch a fish. But the Russian president called it a team effort. Back on land with Mr. Bush's mother, father, and wife watching from a distance, the two presidents discussed their talks and answered questions.
And W said, that's the time he said, I believe this guy. I can look at him and I know he's telling me the truth, right? Vladimir Putin, I look into his soul. All right, so that guy, George W. Bush, kind of makes sense that our borderless situation, he doesn't mind that, huh? The loss in Afghanistan, yeah. I mean, George Bush blew it in Iraq. Why would he mind us blowing it in Afghanistan? That transgender mess, it's hip with Jenna's friends on the Today Show. He's not going to have a problem with this. And the crime wave, well, George Bush uses Amazon, I have a feeling. W, I figured as much. We'll be right back.